Hello, welcome back to Tottenham on Tour. I'm your host, Brian Ireland, and this is the Opposition Preview. Hello, welcome back to Tottenham on Tour. I'm here with JP. This is the Opposition Preview. We're going to do a little chat here between myself and my colleague at the North End Podcast / YouTube channel. A little battle for top four chat. Where are you at with your club? All that stuff. We're gonna keep it tight though, so we're gonna go through some topics. But before we get into it, JP, welcome to the channel. Always a pleasure to see you. It's been a bit. You've been suffering from I think rain in California.
God, it's been
how's things out west at the moment?
It's like 2 days every week of just downpour, and that's not what we do.
Yeah, no, it's JP California. It's meant to be really nice, right? Like
fields are closed for 2 or 3 days after it rains here.
Yeah.
So like kids can't go out and play. Soccer kind of gets halted for a little bit, and then gets stopped, then it's halted. I also ride a motorcycle, and I don't love to ride in the rain. And drivers are like, it's
not great. It's not great. Well, great to have you here again. JP is, as I said, an Aston Villa fan, also a football coach out in California. Coaches a youth team, and so he's got some insight from a different perspective, and also from a Villa perspective. So happy to have you on the channel. Let's get into it, man. We're gonna keep it tight, like I said. Where do we get joy? So let's start with you first. Where do you think you're gonna get joy versus Spurs? If you looked at our weakness, right? What part of the pitch? Is it midfield? Is it our press isn't consistent? Is it maybe somewhere in your back end where you're worried about a player or a system that isn't functioning for you? Give us a little bit of a rundown on where does Spurs get joy versus Villa.
So I think on both sides, right? I think you guys are going to get joy off set pieces. We are terrible at set pieces. We have conceded, tied for the most from set pieces. You guys have a taller overall squad. I just think if you guys can get corners, set pieces around the 18-yard box, you will get a goal from it. We have, I would say, half of our last 10 games, goals conceded, have come from set pieces.
Interesting, because Spurs have struggled with defending set pieces as well. We've had issues. We've had Vicario getting harassed on a number of occasions by players getting in his way. Arguably, depending on how you see it, if you're a Spurs fan, if you're an opposition fan, he was fouled on a couple of occasions and the goal still counted. So, we've had those situations for us as well, but we have scored on set pieces quite a bit. So it's an interesting position there. From Spurs going forward, do you have anything worry about your defense? Is there anybody in that position? Like I think of obviously your second, what's his name from Spurs, who's
Longley, dude.
Longley, yeah. Longley,
he has been shockingly good since the beginning of January. Okay. It's to the point now where Villa fans are really considering if we should make a permanent bid for him, because he has been really good. I mean, we have Pau Torres, Ezri Konsa, Diego Carlos, and Tyrone Mings. Tyrone Mings is out for the season. Yeah. Diego Carlos has missed long chunks here and there. Pau Torres has missed long chunks here and there, and Ezri Konsa is coming back from injury. The other game, we finished with our 5th and 6th string, but Longley has been playing as the left center back for the better part of 2.5 months. And the first 2 games, he looked a little wishy-washy, a little unsure, and he's really cleaned it up. I've been very surprised, to the point of when Pau Torres came back, Longley moved to the right center back.
Right. He was able to do both.
Really well there too. And Pau Torres is a top player. I'm not worried about our defense. I'm worried about our outside defenders.
Okay.
Matty Cash. Yeah. And I'm going to guess Moreno plays for us. Okay. They can be got at, and so that makes me a little worried. So outside defenders is where open play is going to get joy, set pieces all day, and I think Villa are going to try and get joy through our formation, because of our right side is very interesting. In our 10, our second striker comes inside and pinches almost like an attacking center mid, and then our right mid gets super high or comes inside close to that player. So it's like we have 2 6s, or a 6 and an 8, and then we have a 10 who drops only on one side, and a right mid who's very quick, in Leon Bailey, and is having an exceptional season, who gets in very interesting positions around that 10.
Right. I think that's a really good segue. We kind of move into the next category, which is injuries, lineups, and formations. And obviously, we're starting with formations there, because you're sort of talking about how you guys play with your wing backs, how you play with your defenders and your midfield, and how they're sort of structured. Obviously, you know a lot about Ange Ball. We've chatted about it a number of times. And I do think that Emery and Ange have a similar sort of philosophy about attacking. I think there's a little bit more control in what Villa do compared to what Spurs do, but I also think that's a little bit because it's a bit further along. I think maybe last season you didn't have as much control. You're getting better at it as you're being more coached by the same coach and you're starting to understand it. What are your thoughts on the comparison of styles, formations, and the lineups and how they're going to sort of go against each other with Spurs kind of, obviously a very aggressive high line, as well as you guys having a high line as well.
We do have a high line. Half the games we have a high line.
A lot of goals.
So
arguably, right?
It's going to be very interesting. But we get a high line as soon as the opposition possess. If they are a very long team, we'll drop off early. But when we get the ball, we drop off super deep.
Yeah.
So it brings everything in. I think we are the complete equals and opposites.
Okay, interesting.
That makes sense.
I think it does. I think
you guys are very direct combos through the middle, through the outsides, get up quick. We're a lot slower, a lot more patient in our buildup. You guys have a cracking forward. We have a cracking forward. I think we both have styles that our coaches will not change to, right? Unai Emery has stuck with this 4-4-2 the whole season. He hasn't changed formations once. He's changed personnels, but it's very stuck to it. So I think, like I said, it's very equal and very opposite at the exact same time. I don't know how those styles match up because last game we played, Villa won, but you guys were the better team.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think they play into each other in a really good way in the sense that there's going to be space for both teams to get in behind.
Yes.
There's going to be space on, like you were talking about, on Villa's wings potentially. Spurs are kind of trying to play that as a heavy sort of that's the point, is get the wings out wide, get them around, try to get some balls in, and then also having the inverted wingers who, depending on who's playing there, whether it's Johnson or Decky on the right, can cut. One of them cuts inside, one of them hits the byline. So there's options there. It's going to be an interesting one. Do you have anybody injured that you're worried about? That, like, particularly, I know you mentioned the obviously the center halves that have been out for a while, but anybody particular to this game that you may have had last game that you wish you had against Spurs?
Well, the good thing is Pau Torres is coming back. He's been on the bench the last 2 or 3
games.
I
remember seeing that, actually.
So he's pretty close. Diego Carlos started training this week, so I think the game's going to be too soon for him. John Duran, who's our striker, who I really enjoy, but he's a sub player at best. He's coming back from injury. The hard one's going to be for us is going to be Jacob Ramsey went off pretty early in the game at about the 40th minute in our last game against Luton. And he was just coming back into form.
Right.
So I don't know. It's pretty preemptive, and they haven't mentioned anything about his injury yet. There was supposed to be a presser today, and I think they didn't say a long time frame, so he could be back. But if not, I imagine we're going to give Morgan Rogers, who we got in January from Middlesbrough, a run, and he is great in attack and very loose in defending. His positioning is not exactly what Unai Emery would have liked.
Right.
So we will see. He plays as our left mid, and a very kind of ball dribbling left mid. We're going to play the 4-4-2.
The system you've been playing is working. Why not? Why change it? Right.
Yeah. Why change it? I'm trying to think if there's any.
It's funny because it's a 4-4-2 with it, like sort of with a Spanish coach, right? Like it's not something you see. Like it's obviously the 4-4-2.
It's a continental 4-4-2.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit more fluid than what you typically get.
It almost turns into like a 4-4-1-1, or even like a 4-3 with a wide winger and then a 10 and then a striker.
Yeah, there's more fluidity to what you typically get out of a 4-4-2.
Yeah, the other injury that we have that's definitely a big loss to us is Boubacar Kamara. He got injured about 3 or 4 games ago, and he's out for the rest of the season. So that's now 3 guys that we have out for 2 guys for the whole season in Emi Buendia and Tyrone Mings, and another one who is out for the rest of the season, probably until October.
It's been a wacky season for every team. I mean, obviously, certain teams have it more than others. Both of our teams of clubs have struggled and suffered with some pretty
I don't think
heavy
any
injuries.
Team has had a top lineup for more than a month.
For sure. And, certain the ones that have still, some of them struggle, some of them don't. I do feel like the better squads all around who are being managed better. I would argue that obviously the top 6 is accurate as to how the managers are managing the players that they have and that they don't have, which is a massive part of it.
I think it actually shows a lot about the teams that are usually top teams and how their managers cannot manage with injuries.
Well, a couple of them,
Chelsea
I would say,
Man U are struggling.
Yeah, I would say that there's I think put Man U in that conversation. We're not going to bring, because this is a our game preview, but they're having issues with a manager and a manager not necessarily getting what needs to be done. I think Chelsea's just a whole other conversation. It's another mess that is like it requires its own podcast. But I want to talk about, there's a couple of key matchups, and I think the one that we've spoken about previously, something that happened in the last game. Matty Cash, Bentancur's first game back. He's 8 months out. He's been injured for 8 months. Hadn't played in 8 months. Comes back. He's having a wicked game. He's running the game. He's running the match. And Matty Cash goes in. Arguably, from our perspective, it was pretty nasty. He didn't need to do it. And I think most people would agree with that if you're reasonable. Having said that, it's football. Things happen. Just really awful for that to happen to Bentancur after he just come back. And especially with sort of the way he started to play immediately when he came back. There's confidence there. And we looked really good. There was a great meme or a great image, JP, we're going to get to, where you see sort of Romero doing this on the sidelines.
Which is funny because it's like he's calling someone dirty is like,
but he's not dirty. Romero has been cautioned once this season.
That doesn't mean
one
he's
yellow
not
card.
dirty.
No, it does matter. So, and we're talking about two players. We're not going to get into that argument. I just think I think it's a bit flawed.
Hold on, one question.
Shoot.
Is there anybody in your squad that you think is dirtier than him?
I don't think he's dirty, first of all. So I would say no, because I don't think we have a dirty player in our squad. I think he's actually a very aggressive player, and I think he's a lot like your keeper because they're both Argentinian. It sort of runs in the blood of how they play, and they're aggressive. They're just aggressive players. They're aggressive people. That's why they win shit. It's impressive. Right. So I like it, but I want to know your thoughts on. Do you think something's going to happen there, or is it just more of just a media?
No, I think that's the fans buying into it a little bit. There might be a hit on Cash, points, right? Maybe Cash gets up on one attack and a guy takes a nice hit at him, but I don't think there's going to be any blow up like that. I watch Villa. Matty Cash does not get guys injured. He's had 1 or 2 red cards that he lost his cool, but I don't think that was one of them. I think you guys were like, okay, he hurt one of our players. Oh my God, he did it again. This guy's out to get us.
I just think it was the circumstance with him getting knocked out. So like right out, like in the first game.
And of course, like he's an important player for you. So you guys lose him right away. And if it happened to Tyrone Mings, I would be absolutely broken. And Ben Mee has literally done this to 3 Villa guys, and I'm like, that guy's dirty.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know he does. He's not a dirty player, but like he's kind of dirty.
He plays aggressive. And I like
Villa perspective.
Yeah. I like players who play aggressive. I think it's good. I think it's good for the game. It's more entertaining to watch when there's a little bit more let go. But obviously, there's a line, and sometimes players go over it. I think Cash in that case went over it a little bit.
In that one, he went a little bit harder than he could.
Yeah,
but I think
it was from behind. It was late. It was like, come on, dude.
It wasn't a smart move.
No. But anyway, we ended up suffering from it. I don't know how much is going to come in. I'm with you. I think it's more of a hype thing, but it's just fun. It's fun to talk about.
It's fun to talk about.
It should be interesting. I'm curious about your midfield. So you're 4-4-2. You've got 2 in the midfield against a 3 of potential Spurs midfield. Obviously, we're going to have a 10 in Madison who's going to play a little higher, but still sometimes we'll drop deep. And in that 3, you're going to have enough, or you're going to kind of do the same thing with another player that fits into that and makes it more of a 3-5-2, or you know what I mean? Like, how's it going to change there?
So Villa's left side is naturally very high.
Okay.
So it almost becomes like a 3-3 something. I don't even know what it would be because they play really high. The 2 hold very deep when we have the ball, and then when we exploit spaces, they run into that open space and then they retract.
Okay.
So it's almost like 2 6s with a 4-4-2 with 2 wingers that get high, and then a 10 who will drop in on your 6.
It's kind of the same. Like it's kind of the same as Angelo.
Yeah,
I think it's a little more reserved, but it's
doing that.
It's very similar.
To me, is also very similar about our 2 teams. And you guys picked up James Madison this summer.
Yeah.
Right? Was it this summer?
Yep.
And he's been outstanding, but struggles with injuries. We picked up Yori Tielemans, who we put in a 10 role or a second striker, who's just coming very good. And he did this in November where he started to play phenomenally well against
phenomenally. That's an Americanism right there.
Phenomenally well against Man City and Arsenal. And then he got injured.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting how the 2 teams.
There's a lot of crossovers. There's a reason why both teams and the style we're playing is working in certain scenarios.
I don't know how we're going to play against your 3-man midfield because it's so dynamic. But I also think the Village 2 sitting back is the opposite of what you want. You want our 2 to step, and then you want the pressure so you can break and go.
Yeah, it helps for sure.
Dropping is going to be I don't know if it's going to be difficult for you guys to break down, but it's definitely going to change how you normally attack through pressing opposition.
How do we play? So the difference between the last game, because we spoke about this just before we went live, you know, it was a pretty close game when it came to like performance wise. Spurs probably outplayed Villa for, I would say 65-70% of the game when it came to controlling the game. But obviously Spurs do that a lot. We had an 80% possession at the weekend and couldn't score until the 70th minute or 77th minute. So it's hard to break down teams that are really well organized in the back end. I'm just curious, you know, do you see it kind of going in a similar way? Is it there's enough difference between the squads from that match to this one? And also you guys are at home, so just to add to that home mentality and how you play is different, right?
Yeah. Unai Emery very much is wanting us to keep the ball, and this is the highest percentage one season we have had in 22 years.
Wow. Okay.
So for me, I think we're gonna try and hold the ball. We're gonna try and bring you into our half, and then we're gonna try and break you down in one-on-one and passing plays and sequences. I don't know if it's gonna work because you guys have some really fast forwards, and if we play that high line again, I don't like it against your team. I don't like it against Man U. I don't like it against Chelsea, and Chelsea, Man City, and Arsenal. I don't like playing high lines
against good teams, essentially.
So I don't know. Like, this is to me a very hard game. This is our hardest game in a while.
Yeah, I think for Spurs it as well. I think, and obviously we're going to get to the next category because I think it comes into this conversation. What do we think is going to happen in this game? And you know, from my perspective, when I think of the way we've been playing it, you guys are exactly what we need right now, especially after the Palace game where it was 10 men behind the ball and a keeper. Yeah. We had 80% possession in the first half. I think 77 in the second. Yeah. But the chances in the shots on target or shots on just shots in general, chances created was really low. Because it's just so hard to break down that block of 8 players
in possession and be very direct. Like, that could be a way for you guys to win it. We're not great against very good pressers. Yeah. Man City, we struggled with.
Yeah, it's Arsenal, organized pressing. And Arsenal are quite good at it now as well. Organized pressing and like understanding where the team's going to go and how to do it, like tactically with everybody understanding their role and all doing it together rather than individually, which you see often. But let's get into it then. Score predictions. What are you thinking here? It's at home. It's Villa at home. Your record's been brilliant. You had a couple of blips there. You had 2 or 3 in a row where you didn't win, but you got back to winning ways there. It's like you said, one of your toughest games of the season so far. What are you thinking score prediction wise?
I'm going to go 1-1, and that's with my Villa heart on. I think a lower scoring 1-1 is honestly that's the best for all worlds in my book. I mean, I obviously want to win, but I just don't think we can keep a shutout, and I know you guys can't keep a shutout. So
yeah, I mean, we're terrible at it.
So I just don't think it's going to be a crazy game. I think it's going to be an action game, but I don't think we're going to have as many clear-cut chances as we would want or you guys would want. So I think that's the way. Unai Emery does not want to give clear-cut chances. I'm gonna go
the opposite of you because I actually think it's gonna be the opposite. I think it's gonna be a bang, one of the best games of the season so far. A shit ton of goals. I think I got a draw as well though. I do. I think the teams are gonna play to their strengths. Both teams are gonna also play to their weaknesses. There's gonna be 2 high lines. Both are going to get caught. It's going to be back and forth like a basketball game. I'm going 2-2. I think there's goals in it for both teams. I always want to pick a Spurs win, but I think these teams are
0-0.
Yeah, these teams are so sad. I hope not. 0-0. You know what? If it did, I'd be happy about a clean sheet, and we wouldn't be.
I would be happy with a clean sheet too.
Wouldn't be too terrible. But yeah, I think a 2-2. I think we're both on a similar. Just being honest about it, like these two teams are both very well coached, playing really interesting, fun football. I watch Villa out of nervousness because of how good you are, but also I love good football, and the Villa play good football. It's a fun watch, and if so as a neutral, I enjoy it, So
it's so nice.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have been jonesing for a while. We've had a pretty tough last few years. You've had a pretty tough last.
Oh, really? You finished in the top 4, and it's a tough year.
Yeah, but you're back in a conversation. I think Villa as a club should be in. It's a big club, as you've been around for a while. There's got a lot of good history there, and it's a team I like to see there rather than some other teams that I don't think deserve it. Again, another podcast. Final conversation, because this is the one that obviously is on everybody's Everybody's mind, everybody's thinking about who gets the top 4. Currently, I believe you're 5 points up, but we've got a game in hand. So Spurs win this game, it goes down to 2. Spurs win their game in hand, it goes down to Spurs being a point up. All of those things are for me. That's why I said them first. Right. That's what I would like. What do you see happening? Do you think Villa continue the sort of the trajectory and comfortably get that top 4? Is it going to be back and forth, or do you think Spurs pip it?
Well, I've seen many podcasters and many different things, and we're at almost 2 points a game at this seasonal point. So we're at 55 points, 2 points left, 2 points a game on the way out. That's 11 games left. That's 22 points. That'll put us at 77 points. And for most seasons, that's third or second place.
I mean, that's right there. It's right there. Yeah.
I want to say Villa finish top 4.
Okay. All right.
But my Villa heart says we give it up and we finish 5th.
Yeah. So again, you're kind of the same as me. Like in my head, technically I can think about us going on a run, especially since most of our players are back. Poro looks like he's been back. Obviously Richie is going to be out for another week or so, but we've got enough up front to manage that situation. It's our midfield is really solid now. We've got a solid proper squad at the moment, so our bench can actually do can bring some players on and affect a game like we saw with Johnson and last weekend. And so I think that's going to be have an effect, and I think Spurs will go on a run. It's just whose run will. It's going to be so tight. Yeah. I'm the same as you. I think I'm going to say Spurs technically can do it, but my Spursy hat goes on a little bit, and I'm like, I don't know if we're going to get there, especially you
got same but opposite.
There's a bit of an advantage. Yeah, exactly. So we've got Chelsea as our game in hand that we haven't played yet. It's Chelsea away, so it's not an easy game. They've come into, obviously there's going to be history from what happened earlier in the season, and there's going to be a desire to right that wrong, but also that could go a lot of ways, as we know with what happened last game. But man, absolutely pleasure to have you on here. That's does it for our preview. Fantastic stuff, nice and tight, 20 minutes or so. I just want to thank you for being here. Just so everybody knows, JP California can go over to the North End on YouTube, the North End podcast, or the North End YouTube channel. We're over there every now and again. It's a casual thing. We're not. It's not regular content, but JP often does a match reaction. So if you're Villa and you want to see a good positive, positive reaction, which is usually very good, go on over there. If you're first time here, make sure you like and subscribe. Really appreciate the support, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Cheers.
Bye, guys.